politics, mostly pot, and coming to conferences. It is amazing seeing a Black Canna conference. I mean, when I say amazing, I mean amazing. My husband and I have spent 12 years being the only Black people, hasn't quite 12 years, but have spent most of that 12 years being the only, not only Black people, but faces of color in the audience, on the stage, or talking about what it is that we're getting ready to talk about today. So to see an entire conference of absolutely beautiful Black people in this absolutely amazing spiritual town of New Orleans, man, my heart just runs over and makes me want to sit down and smoke a joint with y'all. So today, let's get into it. I do want to do something. I would be remiss if I didn't say also, for the very, 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 very first time in my life, well, my husband, Scott, is always in the audience when I do these things, and you know, he's the better half of what we do and keeps me whole, so I'm always glad to see his face in the audience. But I am particularly moved today because for the first time in my entire life, I have two sisters sitting in the audience.
Yes, we are.
And that is a really big thing for me, so I'm really thrilled to see my sisters here. But let's get into this. So today, you know what we're going to talk about? We're going to talk about pop power and politics. And what exactly do I mean when I talk about pop power and politics? Because people don't usually put power with politics and pop. But we're going to run all that together today because we have birthed an industry. And you cannot birth an industry unless you talk about pop power and politics. I put it up here on the thing. Took a look at what the dictionary says about power. Now the traditional spelling of power is P-O-W-E-R, power. But you know what I like? I like power. Because at the end of the day, ladies, this plant is all about the girls. It's a feminine plant. Brings on the feminine energies of relaxation and healing the world. And Black women, y'all, look around. Look to the left of you. Look to the right of you. What do y'all see? Hey. So we're going to talk about power today. So when we talk about power, in social science and politics, power is the capacity of any individual, to influence the actions, beliefs, and conduct of others. Power. My earliest understanding of power came when I was about 5 years old. My dad loved this man. He used to put me in front of the TV every time Muhammad Ali came on. He would say, girl, this is leadership. This is Black power. This is Black power. He'd tell me every time Ali was on TV, you need to listen to this man. You need to understand what he says. At 5 years old, I had no idea what he was talking about. I thought Black power just meant you could get knocked out. That's what I thought it meant. But my dad would go in and talk to me about his strategy behind a rope-a-dope. I was like, Dad, what's a rope-a-dope? He talked to me about the importance of his right hook. And then he talked to me about the importance of the fact that this man came to the TV and he said what we needed to hear. He wasn't talking for white folks. He wasn't talking for the United States government. He was talking about what it is that we need to understand about power. At 5 years old, I didn't understand that, but what my father understood was he planted that seed. From my very beginning, I started to understand how important power was going to be in my life. Over the next 10 years, we watched Muhammad Ali and Howard Cosell banter and go back and forth. And this became one of the most important people that I saw on TV, and I started to listen to as I grew. One of the other really important people of color in my life as I got older was Yoda. But this is an important quote. Do or do not, there is no try. I get real annoyed when people tell me they're going to try and do something. I've had white folks for the last 12 years tell me what they're going to try to do. We're going to try to do this, we're going to try to do that, we're going to try to get you funded, we're going to try, we're going to try, we're going to try. Yo, do it or don't do it. There is no try. So Yoda, with his little green butt, is one of the most important people of color in my life growing up. We love some Yoda. When you start to talk about power for me, When I went to the University of Colorado, my alma mater, cannabis was a big part of what we did, what I did. I enjoyed the plant. Discovered it in college. Most of my friends in college also smoked pot. It was a very white university. And that white university started to teach me the importance of power. All of my black friends and my pot-smoking friends were really surprised the day that I came back to the dorm and I said, y'all, I just joined Naval ROTC. They're like, you did what? Yeah, I joined Naval ROTC. My father was a military person. And when I got scared at the university, because they threw me in there with 35,000 white kids, you start to doubt yourself. You know, it's natural to do that. I went to the place that I felt the most comfortable, which was the United States military, because that's how I was raised. Luckily for me, when I got into the Naval ROTC unit at the University of Colorado, they started to reinforce the idea of power. The military officer is extremely powerful, y'all. It's really one of the most powerful things that you'll ever do in your life. There's a whole structure of military that talks about how power gets talked about in a command. You wear your power on your sleeve so people know how powerful you are as you walk up. You have your medals, you have your command, you have your training. It's all on your uniform so people can literally read your resume as you walk up to them. And you are treated with the deference of an officer. Now, interestingly enough, even black women back in the 1986 when I was commissioned, even then, they wanted to tell us that, you know what, maybe you're not so powerful being a black woman, but I wanted to challenge that whole idea. And so I persisted. And this is the picture of my father commissioning me on May 24th, 1986. But the interesting thing about the military and power is they make sure that you understand how that power manifests itself. So the pomp and circumstances that we look at with the military reinforces to the people that they give that power to just how powerful you are. The very first thing that happens to a young military officer is after they take off your stripes, you are given your ceremonial first salute. Master Chief Roger Hill was the enlisted man that got me through my command. For 3 years, this man yelled at me from 4:30 in the morning until probably 9 o'clock at night. When I say yelled at me, y'all don't understand military yelling like it happened in 1986, but Master Chief Roger Hill was one of the reasons that I graduated. He didn't let me mess up. And when I did mess up, he made sure he told me about it. So when you talk about military power and the transference of power, the day that I graduated, Master Hill stopped yelling at me and started calling me ma'am. He gave me my first salute. That first salute is really one of the most moving parts of a young officer's life. After that first salute, you then give the Master Chief a silver dollar. It's British tradition. 100 years ago, 300 years ago, whenever it was, a silver dollar was equal to an officer's 1 month pay. So you gave that honor to the first enlisted person who gave you your salute. Master Chief Hill had loads of silver dollars all around his office. I was honored to give him mine. But the thing that I understood on that day was a transference of becoming a midshipman with no power to becoming an officer, to when you walked in a room, everybody in that room stood up. When you left that room, everybody in that room stood up. When you walked around base, everybody that you outranked saluted you. Everybody calls you ma'am. What can I get for you, ma'am? What do you need for you, ma'am? It reinforced that idea of what power and the power structure means, because you're wearing it on your uniform. But it becomes more because it's not just what you're wearing on your uniform then, it becomes how you carry yourself and what you believe about yourself. It's power structure. It's something that unfortunately we as black people are not always given that kind of training or that kind of deference. So we don't get to feel what that power structure feels like. It's a very important time. When we talk about power, when we talk about confidence, you can only become a military officer. My eyes are getting bad. You can only become a military officer when you are incredibly sure of yourself. You are asking America's strongest people to follow you into war. You better be damn confident. When you start an industry and you're asking people to believe in you and your business, you want folks to leave corporate America and come work for you, give up a paycheck, follow your dream, in an industry where in a whole bunch of states today, you can still go to jail for having possession, even including right here in New Orleans. You better be confident. You better be confident. Number 2, peace on power. Take credit for winning, 100% of the time. If this works, it worked because of me. But the other side of that is also true about power. If it doesn't work, guess whose fault it is? 100% lies right here at your feet. Take credit for winning, take credit for losing. One of the most important things that's taught to a naval officer is if you don't train your staff and the people who work for you to do their job in top-notch, exemplary fashion, if something goes wrong, you can lose your job or you can go to jail. If a ship runs aground in the middle of the night at 2 in the morning and the commanding officer is asleep in their room, who do you think gets court-martialed the next morning? The commanding officer, even though he was asleep in his room, or she was asleep in her room. Why? Because you failed to train your people. It's your fault. If you win the war, you get more medals and get to feel the idea and the confidence of that power. So make sure that you take credit for all that happens when you're there. Creativity and discipline. To me, there is nothing more important than the idea of being creative in the job that you do, no matter what that job is. Creativity and discipline. And the discipline to get it done. Having a creative thought is great. It's fantastic. But if you don't act on that thought and you don't finish the task, then it was just that, a creative thought. So if there's something out there that you want to do, grab your power and do it. Takes us back to Yoda. Do or do not do. There is no try. Power. Let's talk a little bit about politics. Politics. The activities associated with the governance of a country or other area, especially the debate or conflict among individuals or parties hoping to achieve power. You know the comment that drives me nuts in life and makes me want to stop talking to some people? I ain't interested in politics. I ain't in politics. I don't want to do anything in politics. Really? Really? And you don't want a date on Saturday night. Because if you get a date on Saturday night, that was politics. You had to go talk to somebody about going out with you. You had to go show them why this date is going to be something that they want to do. That's politics. So anybody that tells you that they are not in politics, to me that means that you're not in your life. You are not engaged in moving yourself forward. The other side of that, it means to me that you're not informed. Because right now when I am talking about politics, yes, politics in your personal life, but y'all, you gotta get involved in politics. One of my favorite quotes, my quote that I tell people all the time, if I put this up there now. Oh, I did put it there. I did this at 2 o'clock in the morning. If you are not in politics, you are not in cannabis. If you are not in politics, you are not in cannabis. What does that mean? If you don't know your city council member, how are you going to know what's going to be happening in your city when these licenses come down? Because you know what? I get phone calls before a bill goes live. And the city council person, or the lobbyist for the city council person, asks me, hey, Wanda, take a look at this bill. Is there anything in here that you need in this? Does this work for your dispensary? Does this work for your grow facility? I know you're getting ready to get into manufacturing. Does this bill work for your manufacturing process? I'm not the only person that gets that phone call. So do all the people who are also invested in politics, which means these big MSOs. As a matter of fact, their lobbyists are helping write the bills that are coming across to your city council member, or your state rep, or your state senator. If you are not involved in politics, you are not in cannabis. And even when we talk about it as far as business, looking at a dispensary operation or a grow facility or a manufacturing facility. But more importantly, how we're going to expunge records. How much cannabis you get arrested for having it on your person. What happens to your sons or daughters when they do get arrested. If you are not in politics, you are not in cannabis, and you are doing a huge disservice to your community, my community, our community. When we took a look at when I left the military, I moved to Los Angeles. I got to Los Angeles in 1991. I got there right before the LA riots exploded. The crazy thing about the LA riots, go back this one for a second. The crazy thing about the LA riots was when I got out of the military, I believed in America. I wore this uniform, I believed if you did the right thing, if you worked hard, all those things that they tell you, things will be right. I believed in all of that. And then I watched the Rodney King trial happen in LA. I think I was the only black girl in Los Angeles that was absolutely convinced that this person was going to get, or these officers were going to get found guilty because, my God, we all saw the video. That was a crime, right? We all saw that video. That was a crime. It was a crime. Of course they were going to go to jail, even with an all-white jury. Of course they were going to go to jail. They didn't go to jail. I gotta tell you, it was that moment that this 26-year-old person's life changed forever. It was honestly the first time that I understood what being black in America meant. It meant that we were powerless. It broke my heart because for the first time ever, it confirmed to me that they were going to look at me as a second-class citizen. And that wasn't okay for me. It wasn't okay. It was at that moment that I knew that politics was going to be a part of my life. Pot and politics was a part of my life because I wasn't smoking pot back then. So we get together and smoke pot, talk about politics. But it got deeper. My then boyfriend and now husband decided that we were going to open up a restaurant. He's a chef. Where'd it go? Going the wrong way. This is why you need a 30-year-old up here to do this stuff for you. Whoops, wait a minute. There we go. All right, we're moving. My then boyfriend decided that we were going to open up a restaurant. Caribbean chef, cannabis chef, Dr. Raw. He was like, no, we're going to open up this restaurant. I'm like, oh Lord, we're going to open up a restaurant. Scott and I got together and came up and went to the SBA, got a loan, pulled our credit cards, talked to our friends, and we opened up a restaurant. My husband's always been an entrepreneur. He didn't rely on paychecks. I not only always had a paycheck, but I had medical payments, I had expense account. This was the very first look at what it looks like when you don't have somebody else signing your paychecks. It's pretty terrifying. Those little young faces right there that had no idea what we were getting into, but you know what, we did it. You know why we did it? Because there is only do or do not do. There is no try. And we did, right? So we opened this restaurant, and we ran this restaurant, and I got real nervous because we didn't have a paycheck, or we didn't have medical insurance. But you know what happened next? Ended up on the cover of Black Enterprise magazine. And what this does, because when you're doing your own, and you do, people then want to talk about what your opinion is on things. They want to hear from you. You know why? Because you become powerful. You know why you're becoming powerful? Because you're talking your piece. Because you're involved in politics. Because you got something to say. Because as the magazine cover said, go for it. Do or do not do. Go for it. And that's what we did. I no longer had a desire for corporate America after this came out, so I quit my high-paying job. And we moved on. And then what happened? We decided to move back to Colorado. And it was interesting coming back to Colorado at a time when there was this skinny guy with big ears that had just won the Senate in Illinois. He came to Colorado for a fundraiser. And I told Scott, I said, you know, I was involved in politics at this time. We were back here in Colorado. I was doing some political things. I said, babe, I'm gonna go meet this skinny guy from Chicago who says he wants to run for president. Well, Hillary Clinton was running for president. The Clinton machine, I mean, it was gonna be Hillary Clinton. Couldn't imagine that a Barack Hussein Obama was ever going to be anybody of real importance in the world. But you know what? It was a black guy in Colorado trying to raise money, so I was like, let's go meet him. This was the first time that I met Barack Hussein Obama. And we hit it off. There was about 15 people in that room, which was amazing because it gave us the opportunity to really talk to this young, skinny senator from Illinois. And he was open about what he talked about. He talked about the need for our community to have better voices. He talked about the need to end mass incarceration. He talked about the need to end what was going on with drug arrest in his city and in his country. It was pretty impressive. The other thing I want to tell you about getting to know somebody when they are skinny with big ears and no one knows who they are, once that person becomes extremely powerful, the circle around that person closes. So this is why you get involved with politics early. You get to know your city council members. You talk to the black and brown people who say that they want to run for politics long before they're popular. Because you want to be in that inner circle before they have to start to close that inner circle. Because if you're trying to get to know that guy right now, it's damn near impossible to do. Right? So get involved with politics. Then we got to meet this amazing woman because we got to hang out with Barack Obama for a little bit. But more amazing than Barack Obama was Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama. She the shit. Absolutely an amazing woman. Yeah, you can give it up for Michelle Obama. One of the most real women I've ever met in my entire life. We want to see her run. We want to see her do some amazing things. Then we got to hang out with this guy again. He started to climb. Then we were hanging out with him one more time. Then we got to hang out with him some more. You got to understand what their politics were and what they were doing and how they were trying to change the world and how hard it was going to be. Right about this time, we knew that he was going to be the nominee. Those walls started closing in around him. The circle got smaller and smaller and smaller and tighter and tighter and tighter. And his conversation became more and more structured so he wouldn't make a mistake, so that we could get him elected. After getting Barack Obama elected, we continued with politics. This woman decided to run for president. She says, hey, thinking about running for president, I had the chance to sit down with her and meet her before she was president, before she started running. This was in the backyard of our house. Once again, get involved, do or do not do, but get to know who your politicians are. We didn't know then, we were hoping then that she was going to be the president of the United States. We didn't know then that she was going to be the vice president of the United States. Politics and power. Barbara Lee came out and toured, Congresswoman Barbara Lee toured our grow facility. She wanted to understand what it was like to be black and own a dispensary, a grow facility, and a manufacturing facility in the cannabis space. So she came to Colorado with Congressman Jared Polis at the time, who was then running for governor. We'll talk about Congressman Jared Polis and Governor Jared Polis here in a little bit. But when she came to Colorado and wanted to talk to Congressman Jared Polis, he said, hey, if you want to know about anybody black in cannabis, you got to go talk to Wanda and Scott. Do or do not do. There is no trial. Became part of Barbara's brigade is what we used to call, or what we call ourselves, still call ourselves. But Congresswoman Lee pulls together all of the black entrepreneurs that are involved in cannabis and has us go speak to the Congressional Black Caucus, has us speak to ministers, has us sit down with black folks that aren't ready yet to accept the fact that cannabis is here, it is an industry, and it's time for us to get involved and for us to end our issues with cannabis. Politics, pot, and power. Then there was this woman who decided to make things happen in Chicago. Got a phone call. Can you help us pull together what cannabis should look like? You know why we got the phone call? Because you do, or you do not do. And we do. And talking about politics and power and being able to chart the course of not what cannabis looks like in Denver, but in Colorado, and in California, and in Illinois. Because when you birth an industry, it requires all of you to be involved in it, from every aspect, top to bottom, to understand it, to be involved, to help them write the rules that are going to determine what this industry looks like and who gets to participate and how the money is divided up and whose records get expunged. Politics, pot, and power. Then there was this guy, Congressman Joe Neguse. Y'all may not know Congressman Joe Neguse. He's the first black representative from Colorado. Let's give it up for Joe Neguse. I've known Joe Neguse since he was a senior at the University of Colorado. He went on to become one of our senior regents, and Joe and I had many conversations about politics, pot, and power. And our word that we joke about is bold. Bold leadership. Be bold when you go out there. Congressman Joe Neguse was one of the impeachment managers who impeached Donald Trump. Yeah, you should definitely check it out. Politics, pot, and power. Joe is not in pot. But when safe banking came across from Congressman Perlmutter, who is in Colorado, Joe called me and says, hey, what do you think about this Safe Banking Act? Politics, pot, and power. And there was this amazing woman. Y'all know Miss Nina Turner? Miss Senator Nina Turner? Yeah, we all know Senator Nina Turner. And Lisa Calderon, the first black woman to run for mayor in Denver, Colorado. She didn't win, but she is now in charge of training all the Democratic women with Emerge Colorado to be able to get more women in the pipeline. And when Lisa has questions about what's going to happen in Colorado when it comes to cannabis, she calls Wanda and Scott and says, hey, where are we going with cannabis in the city of Denver? Politics, pot, and power. What's important when you start talking about politics? Have a strong personal identity, right? Are any of y'all confused about what I'm about? I'm about black people, right? I'm about black women, right? Are any of y'all confused about that? Absolutely not. Have any of y'all heard me ever say a speech or talk about things where I don't talk about black people and black women? I have a strong personal identity when it comes to politics, pot, and power, and black people. Be strong in what it is that you believe in. Because prominent leadership demands that you let people know who you are and what you believe. And the more authentic that you can be with what that belief is, the more that people will want to be able to follow you along with that, because you know that what we're saying is what we mean, right? So when we look at people who have stood up, Dr. King, for freedom, justice, equality, fairness, or even Donald Trump, are any of y'all confused about where Donald Trump stands? Not at all, right? Politics, pot, and power. Support the causes that move you. One of the things that I have an issue with sometimes in the cannabis space, and sometimes people get upset with me because I don't talk enough about patients and about the healing properties of the plant. Let me be clear. I absolutely believe in the healing properties of this plant. I absolutely believe in this plant as medicine. I absolutely have seen this plant help babies with epilepsy. I've seen this plant now start with trials for Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. I believe this plant is healing. But that's not my battle. It's a battle, and it's a grand battle, and there are lots of people out there fighting it, but it's not my battle. My battle is based in social equity and business. My battle is based in mass ending mass incarceration and bringing justice. Yeah. That's my battle. You all know the story of my brother and the reason why we're in cannabis. My brother was 17 years old. He got caught with 4 ounces of weed. That 4 ounces of weed cost him 10 years of his life. Of that 10 years of my brother's life, my brother picked cotton for 4.5 years in a Texas penitentiary, where my brother had to pick 100 pounds of cotton every day to purchase his freedom. This wasn't in 1882, this was in 1992. Let me say that again, just so you all hear me. My black brother had to pick cotton in Texas to purchase his freedom. Politics, pot, and power. So when I talk about the causes that move me, it's so that none of you ever have to have your brother picking cotton in Texas for less weed than I have in my purse right now. Whatever.
I'll be back.
Seriously though, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy that I can stand up here in front of you, and I don't know how many pounds of weed we sold yesterday in my dispensary, but some kid last night in Alabama sold a dime bag on the corner who is now being roughed up and in a jail system. And he's an American and I'm an American. What sense does that make? It doesn't. Politics, pot, and power. Politics requires all of you. That's why you have to decide what your direction is going to be, what your piece of it is going to be. Because this is not for the faint of heart. It requires all of you. I go to bed talking about social justice. I wake up talking about social justice. People get tired of me talking about social justice. White folks roll their eyes when they have to hear me talk about social justice. I don't care. Keep rolling your eyes. Politics, pot, and power. If you don't choose your battles wisely, you will get pulled into all of the battles, and they will wear you out, and then you won't be good for your battle. That's why in the military you have aviators and submariners and infantry and all different types. Everybody does one job and we do it great. Find your one thing and do it great. Politics, pot, and power. Here's the other thing about politics. I was going to put Taylor up here, but I couldn't find any of her videos. But haters gonna hate. You know what? And I'm not mad at the haters, and that's fine. You know, the level of your haters is the level of what you are doing to be correct, right? So what we look at when people dislike what you do, it's because you're challenging the part of them that makes them uncomfortable. It's not about you. It's not about you. It's taken me a lot of years to stop fighting with haters on Facebook and Instagram and everywhere else. It really has. But what I've come to the conclusion of, it don't matter. It just don't matter, right? Folks are gonna do what they're gonna do. But you know what? You keep doing what you do if you believe what you're doing is right. If you know what you are bringing to the table is powerful, if you know what you're bringing to the table is changing things, then you keep doing what you do. I can't stand Donald Trump. And 74 million people voted for him. Right? 74 million people hate him. You don't care. You're doing what he's going to do. You do what you're going to do. Move the people that are working with you. Don't focus on the people who are not working with you. Because the people who are not working with you are completely unimportant to what you have to do. Politics, pot, and power. Pot. Cannabis. Cannabis, also known as marijuana, among other names, a psychoactive drug from the cannabis plant, native to Central Asia and the Indian subcontinent. The cannabis plant has been used as a drug for both recreational and euthanogenic purposes in a variety of traditional medicines for centuries. Centuries. Some of the earliest places that we have found cannabis in some of the great tombs of Egypt. Oh yeah. They found it sitting next to some of the mummies, some of the kings. They had some cannabis there because, you know, when your soul got up after you were gone for a while and you were walking around your tomb, you know, you wanted to sit down and you wanted to have a bong hit. If y'all bury me with some weed, please. Thank you very much. I'm joking, but you know, and then you look at the whole idea of what happened in Chinese civilization is when cannabis became medicine. If you look throughout history, you will see everybody from Queen Victoria to modern day where we're saving children with epilepsy. So cannabis has been around for a long time. First person arrested in America, well, I'm sorry, not the first. One of the first people arrested for cannabis during Prohibition was Louis Armstrong. Because, you know, Louis Armstrong, you know, he was like one of the worst criminals in America. We had to lock him up, right? Yeah, it's silly. Cannabis has been around for so long. We have been using it, we have been self-medicating since America began. So when we talk about cannabis, one of my other favorite quotes from Angela Davis, I am no longer accepting the things that I cannot change, I am changing the things that I cannot accept. And to me, that's what this industry is all about, because it comes back to what? Mass incarceration, social justice, politics, pot, and power, right? There we go. So when we got into pot, cannabis, this was our very, 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 very first dispensary, the Apothecary, Colorado. I have a warm place for this dispensary because this dispensary was created before there were rules. People say, how much was your first dispensary? Not exactly sure, but I believe it was about $200,000 for the dispensary, the grow facility that we opened up in our garage, and Suite 420 on Blake Boulevard in Denver, Colorado. There were no rules behind cannabis at that point. There was no special licensing. There was no competition for licensing. You just found a space and you decorated it. I believe most of the money that we spent on it was what we decided to put into it. Aren't those gates amazing? Look at those gates. Aren't those beautiful? We found those in a flea market. We couldn't use those anymore because obviously they are not standard and they would not keep anybody out of there. But they were awfully beautiful. And that's what cannabis was about at that time. What kind of space could you create? There were no tax issues. The way that we got edibles or weed in the dispensary is people showed up with stuff in their backpacks. We walked back there, sit on the sofa, we would try it out, eat the edible, and edibles were dose, double dose, decadose. I don't know what dose was or what a decadose was, but anyway, that's what we had, dose and decadose. My husband became pretty famous as a cannabis chef because we used to teach, or he used to teach, people how to cook with cannabis at our restaurant. Every Saturday, we had 75 people up in there learning how to cook with cannabis. And back then, Scott used to give them a dose, or a double dose, or a decadose. And then they could eat it, right there in the restaurant. You could eat it. You know why? Because there were no rules back then. There were no rules of how we had to show people how to work with cannabis. However, Scott and his chefs did something that was really unique. We were the first cannabis company and the first edible company in America to cook with full bud, the entire bud, not the trim, because we wanted the consistency to be the same each time. This was before we was testing, before the DEA testing, but we knew that if we grew the same plant from the same mama, that we could take that same bud and make sure that every time we gave you a dose, it was the same dose that you had before. I wasn't sure if it was a dose, a double dose, or a decadose, but it was the same dose, which was important. And that's what Scott trained people how to do. It became a TV show. This was one of the folks that was filming. It's online. You can kind of take a look at what we were doing to be able to show how we could show food and cannabis. And then we created the first Simply Pure. Simply Pure was America's first edible company that was made in a commercial kitchen with real packaging, made by chefs, with proper food handling. One of the things in early 2009 or 2010 that scared us most about the cannabis space wasn't that the cannabis, with its dose, double dose, or decadose, was going to hurt you. It was the poor food handling that was going to hurt you. So Scott, who started cooking for Namaste Hospice, the first hospice in America to allow cannabis for its end-of-life patients, wanted to give them food. And unfortunately, you can't really see it in this picture, but there's marinara sauce, green chili sauce, apple butter, all different types of things that you could actually cook with, make food with. It was vegan, organic, and gluten-free. Back then, we could put organic on our packages. You can't do that anymore for some weird reason, I don't know. But we wanted to create food, and that's what Scott did. Because this was a passion of his, food and cannabis. Then we ended up on The Daily Show. I don't know if you all saw The Daily Show, but Scott had told the host that everything in the dispensary was infused, so he licked me. Yeah. It was a good time.
Exactly.
Can you guys run this video for me in the back?
In political communities is at the center of what could be a precedent-setting medical marijuana case. They are under investigation after police found this. Hundreds of marijuana plants growing in a suburban business park. But the couple says it is all legal, and the pod is for their medical marijuana dispensary business. Fox 31's investigative reporter Julie Hayden has exclusive bail on the warehouse and joins us now with this legal debate. Julie? Well, Deborah, Scott Duran and Wanda James own the popular Eight Rivers restaurants. She's a political activist working at Obama's Colorado Finance Committee. Now, they say everything is perfectly legit, but the cops say maybe not. The confusing laws regarding grow operations leave both sides in a legal limbo. It's the biggest medical marijuana grow operation police have seen.
We went inside, we found 536 plants that were growing in different stages of growth in the place. So we found marijuana plants everywhere.
Politics pot, yeah, politics pot and power. So, I want to tell you all a quick story about this. So we were doing an interview the night before this happened with the Westward because of Scott's cooking that he was doing at the restaurant. Phone started ringing. Rang, it rang, I turned it off, rang again, turned it off, rang again. Scott's phone started ringing. Rang, it rang, we're doing an interview with the Westward. Finally it rang again, I picked up the phone. Adams County Sheriff's Department. Man, we want to tell you what we just did. We just raided your grow facility. We need you to come down here. I'm like, yeah, okay, hold up. We'll call my attorney. No joke, y'all. Scott and I sat on the I-70, and the I-70, we could have turned off on Washington and went to our grow facility, or we could have gone straight and gone to the airport. We sat right there at that intersection talking to our attorney saying, are we going to Jamaica, or are we going to the grow facility? We weren't going to jail. Let me be very clear about that. Shoot, can't get my hair done. Shoot, I'm going to jail. My attorney said, hold on. Our attorney said, hold on. Let me make a call and find out what's going on. The pictures you just saw was Adams County Sheriff's Department walking through our legal grow facility. They showed up in 5 SUVs, 4 deep, all in their riot gear and hazmat uniforms. They broke down the window. They broke through the window of our grow facility. Our grow facility was in a, you have like the office in the front, and then you walk through the back, you open up a door, then you go into the warehouse area. As they broke down the window, and before you go into the grow facility, there was a huge sign by law that we had to have up there that said, this is a legally licensed Colorado grow facility, license number, blah, 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 blah. Wanda James' cell phone number, Scott Duran's cell phone number, owners, with our badge numbers on there. These cops were amazingly clear that this was a legal Colorado grow facility, yet they did it anyway. They went through our grow facility, they cut off the tops of our colas. Yeah. cut off the tops of our colas, went through there, and then made up some bullshit thing that they said, well, people were concerned about gang warfare or gangs having, these dispensaries that were these illegal grow facilities, and somebody thought that this may be gang activity. The gang activity was my 35-year-old brother and my 42-year-old husband and our basset hounds. That was the gang. 2 black men and basset hound. Makes a gang in Colorado. When we were sitting there on the I-70, I also made phone calls. You know who I called? Congressman Jared Bowles. You know who else I called? Senator Mark Udall. You know who else I called? Every city council person, every state rep, everybody that I knew from California to Colorado that had ever been elected. You know why I called them? Say it with me. 100%. My attorney called us back in about, I don't know, what was it, hon? About an hour, half hour, as we sat there, and Scott was like, oh, we're going to Jamaica. We're going to Jamaica, let them figure it out, we're going to Jamaica. All right, we're going to Jamaica. Got a phone call back, the attorney said, ma'am, I've never seen anything like this. Cops are apologizing, they're boarding up your windows, they're putting everything back, and they're going to bring everything that they took out of your grow facility to you tomorrow morning. What time would you like to meet with them? Politics, pot, and power. So here's the thing. These cops knew it was a legal grow facility, but they persisted anyway. Had we not had those contacts, had we not had an attorney that was willing to fight for us, we would have been arrested that night. One cop said that he went to our house. He's like, wow, you guys got a lot of dogs at your house. What are you doing at our house? So they knew where we lived. They knew who we were. They had the license number of the grow facility. Yet still they're talking about trying to arrest somebody. They thought because we were black, we didn't have it all laid out. Exactly. Which leads me to one other thing that I don't have on here. If you're black and you're doing this, y'all better have it 100% straight. 100% straight. Do not slip for a minute and think you can do what the white guys do and not have that license in place all the time. Do not slip and think that you can do what the white guys do and not have all of your compliance in place. Don't slip and do it, well, the white guys don't do it, but do not do this business without an attorney. Do not do this business without an attorney. Politics, pot, and power. So after we were raided, we continued to do. Today, this is my happy spot. I like to call it my happy spot. It's our happy spot, my happy spot. This is Simply Pure in Denver, Colorado. It is one of the most politically astute dispensaries in America, maybe ever. My bud tenders are not bud tenders, they are budologists. If you come to a screen and want to get a job with us, it will take you a minimum of a month to get on my floor. Because you will know every product on there, you will know the efficacy of every product on there, you will know the ingredient of every product. You will not speak to our customers and our patients in terms of, yo, dude, this will get you so stoned, this will get you fucked up, this will get you high. We do not talk like that in our dispensary. Every one of our budologists can talk to you about what it is that you want to feel. If you've got some back pain, we can help you out. You feel some anxiety, we can talk to you about what works for other patients. If you can't sleep at night, we can help you talk about things that work with other customers that help them get to sleep. If you're here for your boys' bachelor party up in the mountains and it's going to be lit this weekend, we can help you get there as well too. But we're going to talk to you about how to be responsible about it. We're going to talk to you about what all of these things mean for you. We're going to make sure that your experience with cannabis is enjoyable and fantastic and exactly what you want. You know why? Because we want you to come back. We want you to enjoy this. We want you to be a part of this industry. We do not want to see anybody not have a good time with cannabis. That's why we are not bud tenders. We are budologists. Politics, pot, and power. Over the years, because we've been very clear about what it is that we've been doing, and because we have been fighting for the same thing for 12 years now, our voice and name helps move things forward. Politics, thought, and power. Black Enterprise was the very first place that got to be on the cover of a magazine for having the nerve to leave corporate America and leave a paycheck behind, and an expense account and medical payments behind. But anyway, from that, when people want to hear what you want to talk about, you owe it to folks. You owe it to your industry. You owe it to us. You owe it to people who look like us to continue to talk and to continue to put yourself out there and to continue to know your power and be powerful. What comes from that, as you can see, we talk a lot. One of the greatest things that happened a few months ago, actually about a year ago now, is I got a phone call from Arzell Lewis, who was amazing. He calls himself the shoe man. Arzell Lewis has given over 13,000 inner city kids new Nikes to go to school with. Because you remember how y'all got teased when you had to go to school if your parents couldn't afford Nikes and they got you nookies, or whatever it was, and the kids made fun of you? He made sure these kids were all going to school with Nikes, not nookies. But he gave me a call and he said, my father has been locked up with a 96-year prison sentence because he had 2 counts. He got busted with cannabis, and then 4 years later, he got busted with cocaine. That cocaine charge, because he had a prior with cannabis, got him a 96-year prison sentence. Arzell's dad missed him going into the pros. He played pros missed his college career. He then played pros in, I believe, Italy. His dad missed his entire career. Arzell had been fighting for years to get his dad out of prison and couldn't do it. Someone then told him, and I had not met Arzell yet, but he told him that I happened to know Congressman Jared Polis, who is now Governor Jared Polis, because I ran Jared Polis' first congressional race. I've known Jared for a very long time. He's not just a governor to us, he's a friend. And this is called proximity. We all need to make sure that we have proximity to power as well. Because when you have proximity to power, the privilege that is given to you from that power can help you change your industry. But more than the industry, when he came to me, he says, can you help me get my dad out? I said, I don't know. But at least I can put it on the governor's desk. I have to make the governor aware of this travesty that was done to this man. 96 years for cocaine after a cannabis charge? Hell. Cops that kill people don't get 96 years. You know, Ahmaud Arbery's murderers might not get 96 years. The cop that killed both of them, John, ain't getting 96 years. So I called up Jared. I says, look, can we look at this? Can we look at this case? This is happening here in Colorado. This makes no sense. This man has already done 21 years in prison. That's enough. The governor agreed with me. We got him out of jail. When I say we, I mean Arzell did the work. Arzell believed in getting it done. Arzell was fortunate enough to fight and to understand his power. And I was able to share my proximity to power with Arzell. And that's what this is all about. That's what this is all about. So when we look around this room, and to end, and to talk about, to wrap all of this up, someone had asked me, what does the future of cannabis look like? Look around, y'all. 12 years ago, I would never have imagined, for the life of me, what has happened in these 12 years. Not any of it. I would have never imagined that I would have been raided by cops. It's not on my... I'd have never imagined that I'd have been selling cannabis. 12 years ago, this was not a career choice. 12 years ago. 12 years ago, or 10 years ago, as I sat in rooms and rooms and rooms of white men and 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 white men, I would have never dreamed that I'd be standing on the stage looking at all these beautiful black faces at Black CannaCon in New Orleans. 12 years ago, I would have never imagined that we would have corporations in cannabis worth $1.3 billion. I would have never imagined that this industry would be sparking a worldwide movement of ending mass incarceration, of ending the war on drugs. So when I think about 12 years from now and where we're going, it's all possible. It's possible that one of you may be standing up here 12 years from now talking about, we got space weed, growing weed on the moon. I got a grow facility on the moon, that's what I'm doing. I got space weed. Hey, I've already got my, a couple of names already picked out for space weed, so I'm ready. I'd have never dreamt all of that. And when you all look around and you look to the left of you and you look to the right of you, you all are the future of what's going to be happening in cannabis. But here's the thing. The future is only going to be as bright as you make it. Politics, pot, and power. I need y'all to go back home, call up your city council person. Do y'all know your city council people? Because what I hear the most from folks in politics is, nobody cares if it's legalized. The only people that care that it gets legalized is a group called the Smart Moms, which are anti-cannabis, prohibitionists. A lot of white women that live in suburbia that are worried about their white sons or white daughters getting hold of an edible, and, or their dog gets an edible or something happens. I don't know. Those are the people who are calling your politicians, telling them to keep it illegal. If you want this legal, y'all need to be involved. Involved. And you don't know who that city council person is going to be, or that councilman's aide when they decide to run for governor one day. It might be you. Because when you get involved in politics, pot, and Canada, or politics, pot, and power, all of a sudden, you may decide to become the leader and have folks follow what you want to put forward. But you must be involved. And bloom where you are planted. Yeah, y'all, it is sexy as hell to own a dispensary. I'm not gonna lie. It's hard work. I want to sell it most days, but when I think about it, it's sexy as hell to own a dispensary. It's fun to own a grow facility, but it's hard. It's expensive. It's amazingly difficult. And sadly, not all of us are going to be able to do it. Not all of us are going to want to do it. Some of you might get involved and be like, oh, hell no, I ain't doing this, right? But whatever it is that you do today, and you want to be in the industry, add in cannabis after it. You're a graphic designer? In cannabis. You're a marketer? In cannabis. Sell real estate? In cannabis. You're a nurse? In cannabis. Add in cannabis afterwards. You're a photographer? In cannabis. Bloom where you're planted. That is the best and fastest way to get involved in the industry. The best and fastest way is to bloom where you're planted. And trust me when I say that this industry needs everything that every other industry needs. We need packaging, we need janitorial services, we need staffing, my goodness, we need everything. Bloom where you're planted. Bloom where you're planted. Folks, be unapologetic. Know your power. Create your power. And we need to go forward in this industry. Because next year when we come back for Black CannaCon, man, I want to see this place looking like MJ Biz up here with black people. Y'all, I really want to thank you all for giving us this time today. I cannot tell you what an amazing honor, of my lifetime, to be able to stand here in front of black people and talk about politics, pot, and power. Thank you all so much. Thank you so much.